Very much, Honorable Norbert Mao, and best of luck in the coming days. Well, cheers. That's Honorable Norbert Mao for you, outlining what he intends to do and how he looks at things. Now, let's switch to Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, who is currently at his home in Magere. Honorable, a very good morning. How are you warming up to Thursday?
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, viewers. We are warming up to Thursday because there's not so much time, and indeed there's not been any more opportunity. Right now, as every other presidential candidate is campaigning, I am confined here because I was blocked from campaigning not only by the security forces, the military and the police, but also by the Electoral Commission. So my mission is precise. My call is precise. All Ugandans, please come out and vote. There's every effort to stifle your voices. There's every effort to say that they discourage you from the election because we are a mass. We've been calling upon people for the last 2 years to register massively and vote. And indeed, we've been calling upon people to massively turn up and vote because our weapon is the information that we're giving the people. Now, the regime is on panic. That's why they're trying to arrest as many people as possible, deploy the military to intimidate people. But please turn up in large numbers and vote. This is a vote change, a life-changing election. It's no it's not the usual election. It's a revolutionary election. So please turn up in large numbers and vote.
Well, it's been 60 rigorous days of campaigning across the country, dogged by a number of challenges here and there. What story would you write home as you look forward to Thursday?
Well, it has precisely been a war zone. It continues to be a war zone. It was not any kind of free and fair campaign. The Electoral Commission has not been and continues not to be in charge. The election and the campaign period was taken over by military and police. It was marred by violence. Never before in Uganda has a presidential candidate had to campaign in a bulletproof vest and a ballistic helmet. Never before has presidential candidates been barred from using the main roads or from even campaigning or from using radio and TV stations, especially upcountry. There's never been so much murder. You remember the November massacres where more than 100 people were murdered, although General Museveni says 54. Many of our comrades were brutalized. As we speak now, my entire campaign team is in prison, some in Chitalia, some in military detention, others in police stations across the country. And many continue to be abducted and arrested by the security forces. So it has been a war zone. However, we thank God that we are here. We've been able to accomplish or to reach where the mission has reached so far. We told people that in this campaign, we are no longer reading from the book of Lamentations, but from the book of Acts. So much as it has been full of hustle, much as it has been marred with violence and a lot of impunity, we are here and we will get there.
All right, Honorable Kyagulanyi, let's talk about vote protection ahead of the Thursday polls. And your team did launch the YouVote app that is going to help with, tallying and all that. But the question would be, in this regard, how do you intend to utilize this application that won't be contrary to the mandate of announcing results, which is a preserve constitutionally of the Electoral Commission?
We did not talk about announcing the result. We talked about guarding our election and make sure we have an accurate result. It is the duty of the Electoral Commission to announce a result, but so is the duty of the Electoral Commission to arrange free and fair elections to ensure that all candidates have and enjoy their democratic rights as per the law. But you have seen the Electoral Commission has been biased. The Electoral Commission itself has been silent on the murders, on the arrests, on the brutalization, on the blockage of opposition candidates from campaigning. The Electoral Commission itself, besides being silent, came out and blocked me from accessing 16 other districts on top of the 13 that they said were corona volatile, although General Museveni continued to congregate people and to campaign in those districts. So we are not looking at the Electoral Commission for answers. Like we've been saying, we look at the people of Uganda for answers. And therefore, we came up with this application to have our accurate result so that if the Electoral Commission chooses to continuously break the law and refuse to reflect and announce the voice of the people of Uganda, we have our result. We have an independent and clear result. So that is why we had that application. But again, you saw probably a month back, the NRM, the ruling party, announcing that they have an application. That application was not to collect food. It was to audit the election. You heard the Electoral Commission of the NRM announcing officially that they would have their own tally center. I did not hear the Electoral Commission mention or complain about that. I did not hear you ask anybody about the illegality of that. So I think just like the Electoral Commission should be balanced, you should also be balanced in your questions.
My question is really balanced, and that is why I asked how you intend to use it, given the fact that this is a preserve of the Electoral Commission announcement. I hope you take it in that faith. Now, given the fact that you have talked about...
I certainly do. And
given the fact, sorry about that, I'll give you time to respond. Now, given the fact that you've said yes, this is to protect your vote, and you do have a right to that, question would be, if the Electoral Commission does not announce the voice of the people, like you say, how do you intend to go about with the data that you have collected as a team of the National Unity Platform vis-a-vis what the Electoral Commission would have announced?
Well, the reason why the Electoral Commission gives a copy of the declaration of result form to our agents is to ensure that we have compiled audit and come up with a title, with a total. And we are not doing that 1986 style. We're doing that 2021 style because we are a new generation. And that's why we're using an application. We are not collecting this data to make pillows out of it. We are collecting this data to come up with a total and know the real result of the election, which we will know and we'll let the world know.
All right, Honorable Bobby Kyagulanyi, I beg your pardon, Honorable Kyagulanyi Sentam, ahead of the elections, there are over 35,000 polling stations where Ugandans are expected to be casting their ballots. What promise do you give to your supporters that you have deployed across all the polling stations? Because even for the information that you would need to be feeding into your election monitoring system, that would be in tandem with the fact that you have polling agents deployed across the country. Is there a promise that you give to your supporters that each and every polling station would have an agent who will guard your vote?
Well, this is not a promise I, as Kyagulanyi, am giving to the supporters and the people of Uganda. This is a promise that we, as a people of Uganda, are giving to each other. I've always been saying, and let me say it again, that this is not about Kyagulanyi. While I play my part, everybody else is being requested to play their part, and they've played it very, very honorably. I mean, I'm not the only one that have spread this message of freedom and liberation. All of us have done. I've played my part. I've asked comedians, I've asked musicians, I've asked all citizens, whether you are farmer or teacher, whether you are soldier or market vendor, to spread the message, and they've indeed done it. It's the same thing that we are asking all Ugandans to help guard the vote. Of course, as the National Unity Platform leadership, we have endeavored to spread our people across the country. Remember that we have been complaining that the regime is using the police, the military, the RDCs all over the country to arrest our agents, to arrest our coordinators. They are detaining them in police and military detentions and say that in the process of recruiting polling agents, we are actually recruiting rebels. Many of the young people that have been sent across the country are in detention. For example, our National Youth MP candidate is in detention today because the RDC ordered for his arrest. I will remind you that the Museveni regime is viewing this election or treating this election as a military operation. They are arresting our people, picking them from their houses, picking them from hotels, picking them from wherever. So while we are giving the promise to the people of Uganda, we are asking the people of Uganda to also step in so we can be able to overwhelm the dictatorship. And that also connects to our application. While there's a section for our official agents to bring in information, there's also a section for the entire population to be able to participate in vote guarding, where they've not participated in campaigns directly. At least we are using this application to bring us together from all the corners of the country.
Well, how adequately facilitated are you logistically and in terms of manpower to secure your vote throughout the country?
Well, we are making every effort. Although it has been alleged by the regime apologists that we are supported by foreigners, this has been and continues to be entirely a homegrown cause. Ugandans here in Uganda and Ugandans in the diaspora in Oman, in America, in England, even within the region in East Africa and Africa are in full support of this. But most importantly, a lot of people, and I salute them, especially young people, are doing a lot of work to see that they add a brick on this. So we have a fair coverage of the country, but we continue to appeal to various fellow Ugandans to come into this, but also to appeal to other opposition forces to also do what they can, because we are all suffering the same plight.
Well, in the past several days, there has been quite a number of mass defections from the National Unity Platform. And it is something that we're also watching on the radar in the coming days. How much toll will it have on your bid for the presidency?
You know, that's a joke. General Museveni is used to the old and archaic ways of politicking. Every time it comes towards an election cycle, they parade a number of people from wherever they come, and they claim that they are defecting from the National Unity Platform. You have seen the regime using the police to raid our offices, to confiscate our paraphernalia, the T-shirts, the berets, and everything, and posters, and then later trying to use it against us. We don't know the people that they say are defecting. But again, remember, Simon, that claiming to defect from the National Unity Platform is the biggest business so far. Our people have been impoverished. So for anybody to pick money from Museveni is a question of coming and saying, hey, I am Bobby Wine's friend, but now I'm ready to kick him and to kick him aside and in fact badmouth him if you can pay me money. I was reading the Monitor just a few hours ago, and there were people in Kololo that went to meet the Prime Minister to say, to demand for money so that they don't cause chaos. Imagine, that is how deep we have sunk. Honorable Wakana Rukunda used to be an admirable character, and so was Museveni. But to see that these, our former leaders who have turned into misleaders, have sunk so low, it does not make us, it does not describe us. It describes them. It describes what kind of liars they've been. It describes how ideologically handicapped they are. Now, they don't use any, they don't convince anymore. They don't have anything more constructive anymore to tell us to win our mandate and our trust. They either use taxpayers' money to buy us out, or they coerce us by beating us, imprisoning us, or killing us. But that should remind us that this is what has been happening with all tyrants before they fall.
All right, Honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, following your campaign trail, there have been a number of promises in your manifesto to the Ugandans, to the different cross-sections of society, among which you did promise the least earning serviceman to have about 1 million shillings. You've promised better hospitals, infrastructure, among other things. Also over time, and as a legislator, you've spoken against Uganda's indebtedness with regard to how much the government is borrowing. Now, let's speak to aspects of revenue, meaning away from borrowing, the other option would be tax mobilization within its country. But looking at the numbers given by the Uganda Revenue Authority as at 30th October 2020, we did have a tax register of just about 1.6 million Ugandans, and 1.3 of those are individuals. We have grown the tax register by only about 0.81%, and yet also the tax to GDP ratio continues over the 10 years to grow at minimally an average of 2%. How do you intend to provide the resources through the available means in the country to fulfill your pledges as a president, if given the mandate?
Thank you very much. As usual, towards an election cycle, numbers are thrown around. This has been General Museveni's habit, throwing about numbers with the GDP, with economic development. But this economic development does not translate to the common person. It does not reflect when you look at people. So that became nonsense to us. We are not going to throw around numbers. We want to talk about economic development that is reflected with the common person, that is showing change in the lives of the common people. Yes, we have borrowed and over-borrowed. But again, with the money that we have borrowed, what has it done? I sit in Parliament, just in the COVID period alone, we borrowed over 4 trillion shillings. To do what? To fight COVID. Did you see any single ambulance, government ambulance procured? No. Have our hospitals or health centers changed? No. Has the pay of our medical workers improved, or their conditions of working even when they're being overworked? No. What do you see? More tear gas, more bullets, more soldiers being trained instead of training medical workers, more police patrollers, etc., etc. So don't give us that nonsense of throwing around numbers. We want the lives of our people to improve in vernacular, in simple terms. That aside, you mentioned my promise, our promise as a national unity platform to the servicemen and women, to the men and women in uniform. I want to reiterate that. We know that the lives of our people, including the men and women in uniform, could have changed a long time ago. We know that if better governance was here in Uganda, a people-centered government, the lives of our people, including the men and women in uniform, would have been improved. But why? Because they have been used to coerce, suppress, and silence all voices that are fighting for people, including them. So this has been and continues to be our promise to the men and women in uniform. My brothers and sisters, the majority of you are young men and women just like us. We are age mates. We are birthdays. We've suffered the same and we continue to suffer the same. Many young men and women who I speak to, soldiers that are deployed, for example, in Karamoja, they earn about 400,000. And you see, just transport alone for Christmas or for holiday or for any special event to come to their families is half or more than half their salary. So you find that even their pay alone cannot give them a decent life. Their houses, they sleep in, jokingly called Mama Ingia Pole. Their wives die giving birth just like ours. Their children suffer to get a decent education, which they never actually get. Themselves, when they fall sick, you know, they don't get no decent medication apart from their seniors. It is just the seniors who are connected to Museveni that benefit. Even in terms of promotion, they are segregated, they are undermined. You'll find a gentleman or a woman who has served in the police or armed forces for 40 years, but still maintaining the same rank. Only seeing these breeds from the presidential line flying through the ranks. So we hope to make life better for you.
All right, Honorable
Do not be used
Chagulanyi.
to suppress the voices that are... Don't be used to suppress the voices that are actually fighting.
Honorable Chagulanyi,
do not go down. Don't be like the fly they talk about that went to the grave with the corpse. You are being used by an old tyrant whose future is already behind him. But we as a generation, our future is ahead of us. So serve the nation, don't serve the dictatorship.
Honorable Chagulanyi, I'll take that as an allegation, but it's okay. The reason I'm giving you the statistics is not because of anything else, but you seek to become the president of Uganda. And these are the realities, because these are figures from the Uganda Revenue Authority. And the reason I'm bringing them forward is because if the Ugandans on Thursday give you the mandate to become the president of the Republic of Uganda, these are the realities that you are going to face. And my question is, how different do you hope to do things from the government that has been here for the last 35 years?
The difference is going to be that we are going to empower the institutions, not the individual. The problem we have today is that an individual has usurped all the powers of all institutions. He single-handedly, or maybe with a few handlers, budgets for the military and does it his way, not the way it's supposed to be done. The same thing with all these other institutions. He, as an individual, decides the fate of our health sector, and that explains why even when numbers are put on table, even when good proposals are put on the table, even when we are signatories to life-changing protocols like the Maputo Protocol, like the Abuja Declaration, which required us to at least invest a mere 15% of our national budget in our health sector, we have not done that because the priority is not to better the lives of the people. That is why our hospitals continue to sink. That is our schools continue to rot. That is why all other sectors are not cared for. Why? Because ideas are there. They are put on the table.
Well,
but again, so-called intelligent figures and convincing figures, convincing then, are put on the table and read about. And Ugandans hear figures being thrown about, but not translating into life-changing situations that they live in.
Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, finally, what is your relationship with homosexuals, like the president alleges, and foreigners?
Well, that is nonsense. It is a shame. It is really disrespectful to be talking to a married man who is married to a woman who you know. You continue. I feel insulted to be drawn in sexual talk with whoever when we have a few hours to lead to an election. General Museveni has always tried to paint us with any negativity, with violence and with whatever. He cannot convince people anymore, okay? You know I'm a married man. You know I'm a culture man that would rather come to this national TV and use this, these last minutes to talk about how best we are intending to peacefully, constitutionally, and non-violently liberate ourselves. But you're driving us into sexual talk, which to me, I find very, very diversionary, okay? We are being supported by Ugandans. General Museveni can talk about whatever. I saw him today trying to change the narrative, trying to be a younger person, etc., etc. Why? Because he does not have anything more to tell Ugandans. I am telling Ugandans that we are a 21st century generation that need 21st century solutions. I'm telling people, which already they know, that we want to bring back the rule of law and respect for the rights of the citizens. We want to end arbitrary arrests. As we speak right now, Nubian Lee, Eddie Mutwe, and more than 100 other of our supporters are in jail for committing no crime. You are not talking about them. You are asking me about homosexuals. Come on, Simon. Don't be one of the journalists that are being used to divert the pain of the people of Uganda by bringing around nonsense other than talking about sense and other than bringing the pain of Ugandans on the forefront.
What percentage of victory do you predict on Thursday?
Come again, please ask again.
What is your prediction in terms of percentage of your victory come Thursday?
Well, you have all seen the entire nation is warming up for change. General Museveni is panicking. That is why they're trying to use every opportunity to divert the minds of the people of Uganda. We are going to the polls. I continue to call upon the people of Uganda, please turn up and vote. Muveyo, Mulonde, they have brutalized us, they have tear gassed us. I cannot go out to campaign. They are trying to divert, to bring every kind of nonsensical talk to change the inevitable. We have been talking about a new Uganda. We have a few hours to go to the polls. Please come out and vote. Don't be diverted by anything. This is our opportunity to change our plight. It's our opportunity to break free from the shackles of oppression. It is our opportunity to peacefully, non-violently, and constitutionally end a 35-year-old dictatorship.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, for speaking to us, and best of luck in your pursuit. Well, now we want to...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to candidate Henry Tumukunde. General Henry Tumukunde, retired, but on the campaign trail. Well, a very good morning, General, and thank you for joining us on the Morning Breeze. It's 3 days to polling day. How prepared are you?
Well, I'm prepared in the sense that I've campaigned extensively in the whole rest of Uganda. I've reached every corner. I've reached every corner. I've reached every corner. Hello, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I've reached every corner, and I have satisfied myself beyond reasonable doubt that every Ugandan is listening to my views. And I've also had the opportunity to expose myself to the situation that is surrounding the country. As far as I'm concerned, that's very, very important in the preparation. We've got running what you people prefer to call structures. We've got running networks. They are very well linked to the center, and we have agents, and the agents are properly appointed and properly selected. As far as I'm concerned, we are simply waiting for Ugandans to vote, and we know very well that Ugandans are very ready to vote. We've mobilized them to vote. I don't know if there's any better preparation than that.
Well, before I engage you on the next question, I just want to let our viewers know that we'll be speaking to candidate Joseph Kabuleta and Honorable Emmanuel Dombo-Lumala, who is representing candidate Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But well, what makes you the man to watch in the days to come, Honorable General Tumukunde?
I can tell you, when I roll around in politics, I remember some important events. There was a time when President Mitala visited President Sankara. President Sankara spoke in full explosion and had very strong views you'd want to think about. And then President Mitala said, Your Excellency, when I was your age, I spoke like you, I dreamt like you, I was as, vigorous in my talk, but thank God I was not the president of France. Can I tell you, I am a seasoned manager, I am a calm leader, I'm a calculated mathematician in this business of politics. I am, I've been here, I know Uganda very well, and I know Ugandans very well. I know all the intricacies between, the state and the citizen. I know I'm quite versatile on matters that run most of these African countries, like security. I know the dynamics that run our economics. I am quite present. I'm quite present. This tells the story about the leader and the other leader. So, as far as I'm concerned, I am the person. I don't know if you'd get any better person like that than myself. I think those who would be competing are not as exposed as I am. And then, to be very honest, the comparisons are very clear. I don't think Ugandans mix us up when it comes to comparisons. That's what I think myself.
Well, thank you. If you can stay on the line, I would like to bring in Honorable Joseph Kabuleta, one of the presidential candidates. Honorable Kabuleta, thank you for joining me. Well, it's 3 days to polling day. Is this election predictable, and in whose favor?
It's predictable in my favor. Does that answer you? Simon?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
I said it's predictable in my favor. Does that answer you?
What makes you comfortable or confident that you're slated to win?
Well, because I've run a different campaign from everybody else, I am not coming out with grandiose claims of this or that. I have just decided to speak to Ugandans like they are stakeholders in their country. Now, from what I've seen, everybody else seems to speak to them as, trust me, vote for me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, that. And what I'm saying is that it's very clear what I've clearly laid out what it is I'm going to do from start to finish, especially in the area of finance and the people's well-being. I've spoken about all manner of things economic, and in a way that speaks to Ugandans like they are intelligent, because they are, or like they know the issues of this country because they do, or that they have a stake in the future of this country because they do. So that is the whole point. It is not about myself. It's not about presenting some celebrity status. I do not have any. It's not about presenting some militaristic generals, experience and so on. I have none of that. It is about telling Ugandans that if you vote for me, you're voting for yourself, because I'm speaking to you as a stakeholder. Now, if we had, if there was a company and you were a shareholder in that company and they called for an annual general meeting and they were going to determine how that company would be run for 5 years, you would want the people, perhaps even who are aspiring for office, to speak to you like you have shares in that company, not like you are there to observe the goings on of this assembly, and then they tell you this is what we have decided and so on. So I decided from the get-go I am going to speak to Ugandans like they are shareholders in this estate that is called Uganda, and speak to them in a way that this is what we are going to do, not I am going to do, this is what we are going to do, and this is how you stand to benefit by having me lead this vision. So, and that has stood out. It clearly has, and I've met so many people who say, okay, at least for the one thing, you've stood out. So that, and I know that there are so many people who sit back and are going to vote the issues, the real issues that affect them. And they don't necessarily vote experience, they vote trust. So it's a question of how much can we trust this person who is saying all these things. Because there's experience, but then there's a whole youthful generation. And so these people want to listen to somebody they can trust. And I think I am that person. Well,
Mr. Kabuleta, if you can stay on the line, I need to get back to General Henry Tumukunde. General, one of the most critical aspects during this crunch time is securing votes. How have you worked this out in all the 34,000 polling stations?
First of all, I want to take judicial notice of your interruption. I was monitoring everyone who came online, and you allowed them to speak their mind. You keep bumping into allow me to speak my views, and you can allow other people to raise theirs. Please.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Most importantly, anyway, I will not tell you how I'm going to secure the vote. The only point I can raise at this point is that we are working together with other opposition groups to make sure that we jointly secure the vote. Of course, regardless of the very, very hopeless circumstances that we are operating in. You can imagine what was happening to the vote, the boxes. You know what is happening to, registers being interrupted in. You are talking about new voters who are coming from nowhere. Regardless of all this, we are doing our best in the circumstance. The important point I always want to make is that we want to try our level best, try to give every chance to the vote being able to change leadership in this country until we lose hope in this. And I think this is one important venture in this particular time when we shall get to know whether Uganda is able to change governance by the vote or not. And I don't want to say that tomorrow I'll be one of those who will give up on the vote, considering the circumstances we are operating in.
Again, General, Thursday is looming. It's just 3 days to go. Have you envisaged any fears or any grounds of optimism of what will happen on voting day?
I know the 3 days better than anybody else because I've been roaring and it concerns me more than anybody else. I'm sure other people are saying so much about it for what they hear. For me, I'm saying enough about what I know and I'm doing and I'm part of. Importantly, we shall still go to vote. We want to continue to give faith to this idea called voting, being able to change government. The most important point that I think is new is that the majority of Ugandans have since known the importance of change. We are no longer an NRM dominated polling station situation. Not really. We have now numbers, and these numbers are very important in defending the vote anyway. There was a time when you would find a polling station and you would never even find an opposition representative there or agent. In this very time, you will find there an opposition agent working together. And as far as I'm concerned, this makes a fundamental difference.
All right. Tomokonde, I know that Panau, you are gearing up for a win ahead of Thursday polls. But clearly this is a contest. In case the win is not in your favor and in the favor of any of the other 10 candidates apart from you, how do you intend to move forward?
Well, the rules of, at least for me, what I know, no candidate is going to get 51%. That one I'm very, very sure about. So the important thing is that whoever comes on top, we shall follow the rules of a rerun. If the candidate who comes on top is willing to work with us, we shall support him. If I'm on top, I believe other candidates will rally behind me. What I know for sure, we do not have a clear picture about what this will be like because we've been looking at opinion polls mastered and managed by the sitting regime. So we wait for, Friday, and then we shall know which way to go. But for me, the principle is very clear. If any candidate is on top of the 11, we shall rally behind them. And I believe when I'm on top of the 11, let them rally behind me.
All right.
That's all I wish to say.
General Tomokonde, with your claim that no candidates will get 51% or 50%, and yes, we know clearly constitutionally it's a 50+1 percent for one to be declared a president. Number one, what makes you think that way? What are your pointers to the fact that no candidate will get that mark? And just in case one of the candidates of you, the 11, gets the 51%, what next? Because that means if none gets that percentage, it would then probably call for a rerun. Is that what you envisage?
Everyone has a calculation in this whole picture. I want to tell you that should anyone get 51%, we will not, waste time. But for me, my mathematics says no one will get the 50 plus 1%. So that's my mathematics. I believe other candidates have their own mathematics. And as far as I'm concerned, mine is fundamental. It's based on deep research. It's based on my traversing the country. And it's based on the equations I have so much knowledge about. And enough research and enough information. Should anyone get 51%, I believe not from any kind of rigging, we shall take the results as they come. Why not? Maybe for me the difference will be that if I get 51%, I will also have to include other opposition leaders because I think they've done so much to change the situation. That's maybe what will be different with me. I'll be inclusive of other opposition leaders.
Well, General Tumukunde, you've worked behind the scenes, canvassing support for President Museveni. Do you have any idea on how a vote might be rigged this time?
Well, I don't know what you mean by working beside the scenes, and I don't know why you don't ask such questions to other people, but anyway, I have an answer for it. I've never acted behind the scenes for President Museveni in order to rig. I've only supported him and campaigned for him. However, this doesn't mean I don't know how rigging is done. I know how rigging is done, and we are monitoring every situation to check that no rig. But anyway, before we go into that, where did these other voters come from? Before we go to anything. Next question, these boxes which are not sealed, what are we supposed to say about them? Next question, this police brutality that, for me, I was denied campaign in Kampala, denied campaign in Jinja, denied campaign in Wakiso. That's about 3.4 million votes. Now, in these circumstances, what more rigging do you expect to happen? Especially when every other candidate has gotten a chance to go there. My only important difference is that I have faith in Ugandans, and I want them to go and vote massively. Once this is done, we are going to beat most of the techniques and the tactics of any kind of rigging. We have the story of neighboring countries. They've done miracles when it comes to this, and they've defeated, all the techniques of rigging. I'm told they are biometric machines. No one knows about them. No one knows how they are going to function. I am told NRM is preparing to have their own tallying center, and they have already set systems, including telephones, which are supposed to communicate results from these polling stations, and they are denying others use of these telephones. But all this, my only hope is that every Ugandan votes. When the 17 million Ugandans who are supposed to vote, plus this they are adding on, it will kill any rigging picture that these small techniques are trying to introduce.
Do you have faith in the Electoral Commission that it will deliver a credible election come Thursday?
I am one of those Ugandans who are struggling hard to have faith in the Electoral Commission, but there is nothing to show for it.
Well, what are your fears of what could happen on Thursday?
My fears is, for example, if police denied me campaigning in the whole of eastern and part of northern Uganda. So what is likely to happen when you have police, pretending over polling stations and doing everything that they want to do that has denied other people equal opportunity? However, all this is beatable. Let all Ugandans come out and vote. This, I know, is one technique that has worked in many other African countries. It has just worked in Malawi. It worked in Congo. Because anyway, this police where people are so worried about, how many are they anyway? Let's assume there are 50,000. Divide by 35,000 polling stations. You know, that's something like 2.5. You know, you're talking about 2.5. It means you'll have no driver, you'll have no headquarter, you'll have no specialists. Everybody will be on polling stations. Even if you add the diesels they are talking about, 145. And by the way, not all these diesels you are adding on are supporters of government. They are just simply conditionally operating as if they are. But they are not necessarily supporters. And even the policemen have a private chat with them. I remember when I was a CEO of the 4th Division in Guru, in the outside of the barracks where soldiers vote, you remember very well they voted Mao. Who were these voters? So sometimes what worries Ugandans is not what we need to worry about. Go and massively vote. It will reverse all these trends. When you have 55% of Ugandans voting like they did in 2016, then this mathematics will fall left or right in favor of rigging. Just go and massively vote. And let these opposition forces work together as we promised to. And we all man these polling stations, countering any kind of possibility of rigging. Then I want to tell you that even these people they have included will not be able to overwhelm the massive number of Ugandans who want to have change. For me, I've been preaching change. I have spoken for change. I have campaigned for change. I have a belief we'll get change. And that's why I can see a lot of panic in the circles that you seem to be having so much confidence in.
Well, thank you very much, General Henry Tumukunde. We'll certainly be interfacing with you all throughout the journey until election day. Well, let's bring in Mr. Joseph Kabuleta, another presidential candidate. Joseph, what are some of the key touch points to polish ahead of the day?
In the campaign, I suppose, is what you're asking about.
Yes.
It's, first of all, it's the second last day of campaigning, so a few places need to be combed today and tomorrow. But the most important thing is agents making sure that you have some kind of presence on as many polling stations as possible. I would be lying if I said that I'm going to surely say we'll have presence in all the 33,000 of them. But have as much presence as possible in all of those polling stations, or rather in as many as you can handle. And a lot of it has been done through pure voluntarism. And that's what I've really enjoyed about this thing, is coming out and so many people, just on the listening to you, pick a keen interest in what you're saying, and they volunteer, and they move miles, and they are doing all these sorts of things for absolutely no personal benefit for themselves, apart from believing in the dream. And I love that. So there's been a lot of that. So for that reason, actually, we're going to have a lot of presence on the polling stations that actually, as an individual, even as a group, myself, The Rock and what, would not have mastered on our own without the volunteers. But we're so grateful to them because they actually give us presence in places we cannot be.
All right. Candidate Kabuleta, how then do you hope to secure your vote if you are not sure of having presence across the country? Because this is a national vote, and you need, if you are to secure the vote to become the citizen number one, you need to ensure that your vote across the country is secured. How are you going to carry on with the progression of the reports on what is going on across the country?
And the thing is, having a presence on each and every polling station, as I told you, it's logistically very difficult. And you have to have been like either party and in the process of doing this for quite some time, because even the new parties would struggle to have that. But having a presence in a locality, let's say a sub-county, because there could be so many districts, so many polling stations in that place. But having a presence in a small locality is something that is viable for us. And that is enough for the information to be picked from all sorts of different polling stations and sent to us to understand what is going on. So I would be lying if I said I'm going to have 33,000 polling agents. I would be lying, and I'm not good at lying. So, but I know that in certain localities, there are places where, you know, there's somebody who is going to be covering this place, probably 6, 7 polling stations within that place, and they can be able to monitor what's going on there. And I think for now that's going to be good enough. And all of them are volunteers. All right,
Candidate Kabaleta, your key highlight of the campaign, or what you ride on, is financial liberation, and I hope I'm right, big to be corrected with that. And in financial liberation, looking at the economy of Uganda, there's been the overriding, talk about the economy being in the hands of multinationals or foreigners. I'll just pick up a case in point when we look at our mobile money transactions. With over 23 million subscribers in the financial year 2018-2019, we had over 70 trillion worth of transactions. But that is way over Uganda's GDP. And when we also look at the small and medium enterprises, which contribute to about 33% of our tax revenue, they're still low, and they continue to talk about taxes as stifling their businesses. What is your plan to fulfill this financial liberation, but looking at these different sectors of the economy?
First of all, I'll start with the second one, because you cannot, 82% of our SMEs fail. 82%. Now, that is a very high and damning figure for a country that is supposed to be riding on that. Because when you look at other economies, even the top economies, SMEs employ as many as 60% of the populace. Now, if you have 82% of our SMEs failing, then it's not possible for us to employ those number of people. And here is the reason why. There are two things we have to, there are three, but I'll just talk about two here. The first one we have to handle is interest rates. You cannot have a GDP growth of about 4, 5, at most 6, 7% per annum, and then the base lending rate for commercial institutions is 19.2. That means even your country would not be in position to borrow money and pay it back, because you're growing at 7%, that's in a good year, yet you're borrowing at 19%. So if the country cannot, basically borrow from the commercial banks as a nation, what makes you think that the private businesses, especially the SMEs, will be able to do that? I remember one time when I was seated working at a newspaper, and somebody came and said that they were giving me a loan at a very competitive rate of 23%. Actually, they said 25%, I'm giving you a salary loan. And I was amused, because I'd just been reading a newspaper just that moment when he walked in, when his bank was celebrating at the end of the year and had thrown a big party for having a 19% increment. And yet he is giving me a loan at 25%. So I told him, even your own bank would not be able to pay your loan that you're giving me, because you've only made an increment of 19%. And yet which means if you had borrowed at the rate you're giving me, you would not have managed to pull through. So this is the problem. So number one, we have to deal with interest rates. We cannot have a base interest rate of 19.2. That is terrible. Because usually, and of course this is not for us, but in first world countries, they make sure that the interest rate does not exceed the GDP growth per annum. So if the country is growing at like, let's say 2%, 3%, as most of them usually do in those countries, 2.5, the interest rate will be there and thereabout. It cannot be 10%, because then it's unfair, number one. The second thing is we have to deal with the issue of power. Power would bring a lot of industries here if we had basic reductions in power. And we are paying some of the highest power bills in this country, even higher than countries that we are selling power to. For instance, we sell power to Kenya, their power is cheaper than ours. We sell power to Tanzania, their power is actually much cheaper than ours. So we have to find out, why is it that Ugandans are paying the same amount of money for electricity that people in Sweden are paying. How are we supposed to survive, seeing as we are who we are, and we are supposed to pay at the rate of countries like Sweden and Israel and so on. So those are the things we have to deal with. And of course, there is a reason why, and that those power tariffs can be reduced. I don't want to go into the details why the power tariffs are so high, but we are far higher than the world average, both for industrial and domestic use of power. So now, by dealing with just those two things, the third one I'll leave it out for now, but dealing with those two things, you can actually make it easier for our SMEs to start working if they were borrowing at a much friendlier interest rate. And that means they would employ more people because they are usually the backbone of all employment in all countries. They fade here in Uganda at the rate of 82%, as I've said. And then also the power would attract industries, which would actually, cheaper power is what I mean, would attract industries, which would in turn also give, jobs to people who are looking for them. And then we get closer to meeting the demand for jobs that the people being thrown out there after studies are asking for. Because I'll give you examples. You gave examples of 2018. In 2018, we created as an economy 149,000 jobs and something, let's say 150,000 jobs. And in that same year, we had 606,000 people being thrown out in the job market looking for jobs. So we had a net deficit of 450,000 jobs in that year. So now, how do we close that gap and make sure that we can produce at least twice as many or 3 times as many so that we can start absorbing more people into the job market than we are right now? It goes back to SMEs, it goes back to electricity. And somehow it ties in, some of these things tie in. I don't know if I've answered your question. The second one, or the first one you asked, which I've answered second, is the issue about so many multinationals. Now, this is something that, of course, actually it pains me quite a bit, because there's a lot of things that are run in this country as a syndicate, as if we are just a province and not a country of its own. And when I was looking at the merits and demerits of, remember the Ham Chigundu case and so on, and how, without saying without even taking, having any particular direction in what I believe should have been done, the issue is that that kind of syndicating of things being run from out of Uganda, affecting Uganda, happens in so many instances, as if Uganda is a province. So it's almost like we have no control over our borders. So people do things here, and they're not paying the necessary taxes. You have tourists coming into Uganda who are booking into Kenyan tour operators and paying all the money there and just coming here and getting a few of the things we have to offer here that are not there, and then they go back. But most of the money is put the other side. And it's almost like we're a province. And now we cannot really develop our country when we are thinking like that, or handing everything over to multinationals, especially things we can be doing. For instance, the entirety of the fishing industry has been handed over to foreigners, and that is an industry which used to employ as many as 800,000 people in 2008. And now, the number of people employed in fishing is just under 120,000. So that's a lot of people who are earning money, and quite an amount of money, by the way, because we export a lot of fish, who are earning all that money, and now they are jobless because the fishing industry, lakes, and so on, have been handed over to foreigners. And now foreigners can do things we can't do, but they're not going to. Fishing should be, really, what are indigenous people going to do if we are handing over fishing and the fishing industry to foreigners? And so many other things. But of course, it ties into this government, because anything that can be taken away from the local person and given to foreigners is exactly what Mr. Museveni is looking for, because his sole purpose is to impoverish Ugandans. So he will find all these things. And you see, even the banks themselves. We have so many Kenyan banks here. I think we only have one really, really indigenous Ugandan bank. More Kenyan banks in Uganda than actually Ugandan banks in Uganda. And that's very unfortunate, because how do we develop like that? Because we are actually not even learning ourselves. You see, now I'll tell you this. There's somewhere in the Bible, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, I think verse 43 and 44, it talks about a nation that is cursed. It says, when you're cursed, foreigners come into your nation and they prosper and go higher and higher, while the indigenous people continue to go lower and lower. And that sounds like Uganda. Then it goes on to say that foreigners come in your country and they lend you money, but you do not lend them any money. Now that sounds like Uganda, because all the banks from which we are getting these loans are foreign banks.
Mr. Kabuleta, I'm afraid we're running out of time, but as I see off, with all the conduct and the tension that has come during campaigns, what kind of outcome, what kind of election are you anticipating come Thursday?
Anticipating is one thing, hoping is a totally different thing, because I'm seeing a lot of military presence. I don't know what that is all about. A lot of military presence, a lot of fear, and I'm seeing so many people. There are actually a good number of people who are so scared. Some of them are going to up-country places and so on, and an election should not be like that. So I am anticipating something very tense, but I am hoping for a peaceful election. But it's increasingly beginning to look that it might not necessarily be a very peaceful election, because if what General Tumukunde is saying, that nobody is going to get 50 plus 1%, then there's going to be a lot of, So, and yet actually, we do, from the basic calculations, I believe him, I absolutely believe what he's saying. I know for a certain that nobody is going to get 50 plus 1%. That is, I'm so glad that, because he's more experienced in these things. So I'm so glad that he said that, because that's also my conviction. So I am hoping for a peaceful election where nobody gets that. We sit together, who has got the most votes, who can work together, go for a rerun, and it's peaceful. That's what I'm hoping for. But it's kind of different from what I'm anticipating.
Well, thank you very much. We want to bring in now Honorable Dombo Lumala. He's representing candidate Yoweri Museveni. A very good morning, Honorable. You've heard from all the candidates about their concerns and their expectations. How do you weigh in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Angela, and good morning, our viewers. Candidate Museveni is very busy securing the future of Ugandans, and he sends greetings to the people of Uganda, and he asks them to come and vote the old man in the heart. I've had an opportunity to listen to most of the candidates, but you just see the reason why NRM is consistently being voted, because of the historical perspective and knowledge about Uganda and the way it has participated in reconstructing Uganda to where we are now. I saw one of the candidates being asked about statistics and figures. There is no country that would be run without statistics and figures. And the candidates seemed totally to be ignorant about the use or the purpose of statistics and figures, and he was more interested in sloganeering. Unfortunately, economies and states are not run that way. Then I've also had, as we get to the D-Day, people anticipating that we shall not get, that there is no party that will get the required majority. There have been a lot of opinion polls published, conducted privately by well-known institutions of international repute, and they have come up to show how NRM is likely to is performing. And even our own internal polls, when we predict and when we look at what we have surveyed, we show that NRM is in a very comfortable lead. But I suspect that this narrative is being created in order to create a mindset that would be a basis for the people to either contest an election or to want to incite the public into an insurrection. But I want to assure you that for us, according to the figures that we are looking for, we are comfortably working for a comfortable lead, because what NRM has done speaks for itself. And even when you look at the NRM manifesto and you compare with the other manifestos, yesterday I was talking to the workers of Uganda, and they said this is a fantastic document, and this is exactly that we are promising the people of Uganda. So what the misgivings by our competitors does not create any problem for us or does not in any way affect the outcome of the elections, because what has happened over this period during the campaigns has demonstrated and clearly put NRM apart of the other organizations that we are competing with. And I want to assure you that we are working for a comfortable lead. When you look at the economy, and you look where the economy has come from, where are the areas where do we want to make the jobs? Previously,
Honorable, if I could interrupt you here.
But when you look at the capacity for government jobs to expand, government can only expand to about perhaps 500,000 jobs in the country. And that's the maximum. And until somebody either dies or retires, that capacity cannot be expanded. So the only sectors that you look at and you see that we can expand our job ability are either through industry, through service delivery, like tourism and hotel industry, through ICT, or through expansion of commercial agriculture. And these are areas that are well elaborated on what we intend to do. When you look at industry, we have set up so many industrial parks, and you have seen what the industrial parks have done. We have Namamve, we have Mbale, we have Mbarara, and we have many areas that are being set up as industrial parks. When you look at the numbers that are being employed in these areas, and the capacity is improved, and the services, the prices of money, the prices of electricity, and the prices of labor become affordable, and we attract more investors here in the country. That's the only way we are going to create jobs for our people. When you look at the service industry, if it were not for this COVID, we hope that the service industry, through either transport and transportation, through hotel management and service delivery, through the tourism sector, we believe that through this, we shall expand the economy. Unfortunately, I had my brother Kableta condemning the networking of the tourism companies, where there has been a recommendation that we could have a single entry or a single visa or a single processing for tourists. When tourists come and pay in Uganda and they get an opportunity to access all the other countries, they would do the same if they went to Kenya. This is not a disadvantage at all, but it is maximizing on the returns using the capacities that we have within the region. We have done this for tax management.
Honorable Lumala.
Yes, please.
If I could just come in here and interrupt you a bit.
Why not?
Looking at the campaigns, do you realize or do you believe that as a candidate, Bobby Wine, has given President Museveni a run for his money compared to all the other episodes that the president has been through in elections?
Why should I believe like that? When I look at the time when the candidate Besigye first came, I think it was 2001, he was a real formidable candidate, and he even had a hammer. And everybody believed that he was going to turn tables. It's because over time, nobody would want to remember what happened then. The only huge advantage which candidate Bobi Wine had was which he thought he would want to exploit, was the dividend within the population structure. Because for the first time, we have a number of young people that are going to be voting, and whom he thought he would use because they don't know much of the history of the past, in order to promise them heaven, even when he may be delivering hell after all. But that did not change us, and it does not change the perspectives of what we have seen, what we have planned, because we have been in the management of the country right for a period of time. We know what the capabilities are, and we know what the weaknesses of those people are. Their ideological setting and bearing is not well focused. Many of those candidates are still talking about tribalism in Uganda and religious issues that NRM fought long time ago. Because other than talking about our individuals and our native issues that divide us, NRM chose to talk about the needs of Ugandans. Because whether you're a Catholic, whether you're a Muslim, when you talk about a bad road, it affects everybody. Now, this message by NRM and the progressive work history in the way we have been performing makes NRM far different from all the other parties that we're competing with. And now when you take the experience of candidate Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, look how he has integrated the people who have fought him and shot against him. His ability and restraint to work with all the people, his strength to fight against terrorism and even make Uganda a respectable country within countries, international communities. His ability to attract international community, to bring here investors, but also to make Uganda credit-worthy in order to be able to be lent money. Many people don't know that many years ago, many international institutions had withdrawn. They couldn't lend Uganda money. But for them to come and be able to lend Uganda money and Uganda be able to pay is a demonstration that Uganda is credit-worthy, the leaders know what they are doing, and Uganda is able to pay. The only thing which has been having, which is a bit unfortunate, is that some of the workers of government have been corruptly utilizing the money, at times not benefiting the people that it should. But the fight against corruption is something that NRM is really working for. And I want to tell you that go to Luzira, many public officers are in Luzira because they have been diverting money or misusing the public funds. This is a fight, corruption is a fight, and it's something that we shall be doing together. So I want to assure everybody that our history, our manifesto, the experience of our leaders bails out NRM as a party and assures the people that's the only party that can secure their future.
All right, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, you're talking about credit worthiness on a country that is highly indebted with our debt to GDP ratio currently at over and above around 47%, and in a COVID-19 pandemic where borrowing still serves as our greatest cushioning. How do you speak to the Ugandans who continue to pay this debt directly or indirectly through the taxes that they continue to pay on a very small tax base that does not grow as well? And how do you convince them that over time this debt will be paid and we can now start thinking about having the money that is also borrowed not used for the wrong results, because corruption still remains another cancer that the NRM government is yet to entirely cure?
This area can be addressed through basically two ways. The first one, we need to broaden our tax base. When you look at our tax to GDP ratio, ours is very low. It's the lowest within the region. And we need to broaden it. Once we broaden the tax base and money increases that we bring in through taxation, we shall be able to deal with this. The second one, we must address the issue of corruption within the institutions of government. The leakages that have been happening, you saw recently, there has been a massive reshuffle within the URA. By the time the president took a decision, and he gave the reasons why he did this, it was because the leaders of URA then were involving either in the corrupt practices, or they had left a lot of leakages that would enable the tax to siphon through instead of getting into the government coffers. Then thirdly, we need to bring in investors in order to create taxable opportunities. When you look at Uganda and you look at the source of our income, and you look at the people who are paying the biggest taxpayers in Uganda, for instance, right now MTN is the biggest taxpayer. When you look, perhaps Shell may be the other taxpayer. The biggest taxpayer, Ugandan taxpayer, if you looked at the statistics, is Bank of Uganda. And Bank of Uganda, we need to work so much in order to enable and give capacity, the productive capacity, to many indigenous institutions in order to build our own ability for institutions either to pay tax or to create employment opportunities, and we have people whom we shall tax. But once we broaden the tax base, we create bigger opportunities to attract more investors and also seal the leakages within the system, then we shall be able to address the debts that government is consuming now. Although the debt is big, it has not yet gone to the level where Uganda would be regarded as a highly indebted country. Because right now we are able to service our debts as and when the obligations fall due.
Here, why is your candidate still worried that there will still is vote just days to elections?
Mr. Kagwanjala, have you ever participated in an election?
Yes, I have.
And what happened?
That's because a story for another day.
Every person who participates in an election, especially if you are participating in an election in a country where the courts of law have made decisions that people have been cheating elections. We have had NRM candidates who have lost in the petitions purely because they have either participated in malpractices or they have conducted themselves in a manner that breaches the election guidelines and regulations. So in order to caution or to make a preemptive action so that people don't cheat, our candidate has to get concerned. Besides that, our candidate has the privilege to be also the commander-in-chief who has a lot of resources at his disposal to be able to find out through the intelligence network what are the likely things that are likely to happen within the processes. And at times when he talks, even when he talks as a candidate, he also uses information that comes to his knowledge, because he's a commander-in-chief and the incumbent president, that the intelligence network gives him what is likely to happen and what the people think. But some of these statements are basically meant to show, and then they are preemptive, to warn people who intend to steal election not to do so, but also those who do to know that there are consequences, because the law is very clear on what somebody can do should there be an election theft.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Dombo, for speaking to us. It's just days to elections. We can't wait to speak to your candidate, though.
Thank you very much, and let the people of Uganda come up and vote. Let them come and vote the old man with a heart, and let them come and vote the NRM candidates. And the future will be secured.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you. Good luck. Regards to your candidate.
And we hope to get him, as just like you said. And for the Ugandans, as a political command center, of course, our pledge is to ensure that we give you a 360-degree coverage.
Certainly. It's going to be robust.
Ahead of Thursday. We're here. We're ready. We're ready to sleep.
We are energized already. And we'll do 24 hours, 360, call it anything to the extreme.
And also to our viewers, we'll continue to have, we just had about 4 of the candidates, of the 11 candidates.
Actually,
and we
5.
do promise.
One was represented.
Oh yeah, one was represented, yes. So we do
tomorrow we'll have another round.
Yeah, another lot of
Catch us again tomorrow. That's all we had for you this morning. Cheers and a lovely week.